What's up, visionaries? This is episode 42 of the Create Your Vibrant Life podcast with your host, Padma Ali. Today, we're actually not going to be talking about money, but we're going to be talking about how you can gamify your life and achieve success. So I have another guest today, Derek Loudermilk, and we're going to be talking about how by gamifying your life, how if you make your life a game, how you can actually achieve success through that. How amazing is that you get to play and you get to achieve success at the same time. It was such a pleasure interviewing Derek, and here is Derek to you without any further delay. Welcome to Create Your Vibrant Life podcast, where you can create the life you desire by tapping into your I'm your host, Padma Ali, widely known in the field of psychology as helping long-lasting transformation. And now, I'm here to help you create the life you desire using the combination of neuropsychology and coaching practices. This podcast is for you overachievers who are ready to unlock their highest potential so you can live the life of your dreams without limits. I'm here to guide you through a process of self-discovery to be the creator of your destiny. You can have that fulfilling career, that relationship, the abundance, all by taking aligned actions simply by tapping into the power of your brain, your inner wisdom, and your practices. So, moving forward, I am so delighted you're here. Welcome to Create Your Vibrant Life. This is your host, Padma Ali. Today I have a very, very special guest, Derek Loudermilk. Am I saying your name correctly, Derek?
Loudermilk, yep, exactly.
There you go. I met Derek a year ago at in a group program that we're still a part of, an amazing group program. And Derek has so many amazing different skill sets that he brings in, and it's very, very interesting to hear Derek's story. So without any further delay, I'm going to let Derek introduce himself.
Hey, thanks, Padma. Thanks for having me. I've introduced myself many different ways in my life and career. Up until recently, I would introduce myself as a professional adventurer, just because that usually started conversations off on a good track, because people would say, "Oh, let's talk about that." So it was a good, when you're at a party or something and people say, "What do you do?" My goal is just to keep an interesting conversation going. So I'll even make stuff up. I also often say that I'm an author, because that opens the door for people to say, "Oh, well, what books have you written?" or things like that. But I'm always playing around with how I introduce myself. But I've sort of stopped professional adventuring, and after 6 years of full-time travel, I'm in one place. I mean, most people now are sort of stuck, but I decided to slow down with my family, and I stopped traveling. We were in Portugal. We were about to move to Romania, to
Wow.
Transylvania. We were going to live right next to Dracula's castle, actually.
Oh my goodness.
But my wife said, I'm kind of just tired, and I'd like to have a garden. So we changed everything. We came and we bought a house, and now we have a garden.
Yeah. And that's what stood out to me when I first met you. It's like that you have so many different aspects to yourself. Like the adventurer is one, the entrepreneur is another, and you have many different interests. And I'm just curious, so when you say you're no longer a professional adventurer, do you not use that in your work? I feel like you still do use some of that elements in your work.
Well, one of my mentors, so I transitioned from being an academic. I thought that I was going to be a lifelong professor. I was a microbiology PhD student. I discovered a new species of virus, and I thought that's what I was going to be doing. And then a bunch of life events basically took everything away from me all at once, which at the time was traumatic, but I see that it was great. So I lost my house to a flood. I had a traumatic brain injury. I got divorced. And then I ultimately ended up dropping out of grad school, and that all happened in the same year. It was a crazy year.
Wow.
But so, I mean, obviously there's a really low moment, but even at the time I could see that it was, clearing all the previous life trajectories away, allowing me to go on a completely new trajectory. So, one of my mentors said, you still need to be known for something. You still need to be the best in the world at something. What's that going to be for you? And I said, well, I'm going to be the world's leading expert on adventure. And
love that.
So I packed a little carry-on bag, and I lived out of essentially 30 liter bag, which is like your day pack size bag, for a couple of years. Went to 40 plus countries all over the world, started my first business, and
all while traveling.
Yep. Yeah. I was basically the idea was, pick a country. We started in Vietnam. Pick a country with a low cost of living. Estimated about $1,000 a month was going to be my cost of living to travel there. So I got 4 clients. I was coaching young athletes, teaching them how to become professional cyclists, because before I was an academic, I was a pro cyclist. So I was like, I know how to do that. I'm just going to teach these kids that want to do that. And so I had 4 clients, basically 4 times $250, $1,000 a month. So I basically had an infinite runway to explore, which is exactly what I wanted. And all subsequent businesses have sort of developed as I learned about business. So starting a podcast, I host a podcast, teaching people about podcasting, and then people were asking me questions about business, and then marketing and building teams and writing books, and all these things that just sort of naturally flowed from one step to another. But the whole time I was keeping this perspective of, if I'm going to be the best in the world at adventure, I'm going to look at it from many different angles. So I'm going to make myself be adventurous in as many ways as I can, pushing my comfort zone, whether it's in having uncomfortable conversations or jumping off waterfalls or just trying new random things, learning a new dance salsa or something. And at this point, 6 years in, I feel like I've looked at adventure from every conceivable angle, and I've met the world's greatest explorers, and now they're my friends. And so where I'm arriving in this conversation is I'm sort of pivoting again to looking at more science, circling back to science and spirituality, like seeing how these two are actually very aligned, and using scientific evidence to enhance spiritual tools, how we bring that into our lives as entrepreneurs. And so that's a rambling trajectory of how I got to where I am. How about that?
But it's very interesting. So here's what I picked up. There's something about it. You've combined adventure, you've combined science, and you've combined spirituality into what you do. And before we started I pressed record, you were talking about gamification. And I wonder if all of those things influence that gamification of work. I think that was the term you used. Is that right?
Yeah, and I've really loved this idea. I bring it into my own business. I bring it with the clients that I work with, but there's a few elements of games that are just such a wonderful part of humanity, right? There's within games, you're doing more experimenting. You're taking risks to see if you can win, and you're risking losing to see if you can win, or you're being creative. You're thinking, maybe, especially with Monopoly, I find it's really fun. Like, you're trading properties, but you try to bring in stuff outside the game. Well, I'll give you a massage and boardwalk if you give me, Marvin Gardens, and so then you're learning about negotiation and all this. But in games, there's this creativity, there's this creative risk taking. In a lot of games, video games especially, there's character development. There's this hero, player one is the hero, and that character develops. It goes and acquires skills and tools and allies, and all of these things are great metaphors for our own life, our own business. So, right, if you meet the wizard in the game, that's just like having a good mentor in your business. And when you start to live from a place where you're playing life rather than like slogging through it, then it brings you, a lot of times it brings you into flow states. It brings you into this that when time slows down and ceases to have meaning, and you're utterly absorbed in what you're doing, and it's just the right blend of being challenging and pushing your skill level, but it's not boring, and it's not too hard that you're going to give up, which is what good games do. You rise to the level. Your character is facing adversaries that are the appropriate level. And so there's just a whole lot of ways that you can look at life or business through this gamification lens, and it makes it a lot easier in some ways to think of yourself as a character. Like, what's your superhero secret identity that you need to adopt in order to do this sort of like big scary thing you've never done before? That can also be very helpful. But so, adventurers are often doing these things that are sometimes nobody's ever done them before, right? People are doing a first person to climb this thing, or first person to see the whatever inside of the cave. And, you have to be some sort of almost larger than life figure to have the confidence to be able to do that. But these are just normal people. These are just real people. And they develop this sense of almost superhero-ness by what they take on, the challenges that they take on. So it's just gamification is a fun way of looking at what otherwise might be even your chores, even your normal daily process can be made into a game, and then it becomes way more fun.
Yeah. And I love that, mainly because most of my clients and people listening to this podcast, they tend to be in the workforce, and there's a lot of stress that they encounter on a day-to-day basis. And when you are a high-level executive, you're often faced with making decisions, and you have to make the right decision, in quotes. There's just a lot going on. And I love this concept of gamification. It just takes life to a more lighter level. That's the sense I get, like making it easy, right? Okay, if I was this character in my game of life, how would I play it? And what other players can I bring in to support me in order to get to whatever goal? I love that. It makes life really, it reminds me of that, the Florence Scovel Shen book, right? Like with the game of life and how to play it.
There you go.
It's
exactly.
Really, it's a great way to look at life. And so like not taking life seriously. That has been one of my struggles, like to stop taking life seriously. And this is a great way to do that. Just stop taking life seriously.
It's funny because I'm a very serious game player, because, I'll even adopt different. So if I play to win, I'm known for
your competitive streak comes in.
Yeah, very, very competitive, even to the point where I'll, be a jerk, or be manipulative, or using all my persuasion that I can to. But the way I see that is within the framework of a game. The objective is to win. So play around, right? And you realize, like, ooh, this, perhaps the result is that like people like you less outside of the game. So, but it's still an experiment. It's like a social experiment that you're allowed to play. People think you're allowed to take risks within a game, but you're not when it comes to your own career or your own finances or your own relationships. But it's really different. It just feels like it's more risky to do that because, Parker Brothers didn't tell you like, okay, when the game's over, it's over. And one thing is with games, you have a very clear set of rules. So as long as you stay within those, you can push the limits as much as you want. And there's a very clear pathway to winning. Like, here's what it takes to win. Here's what winning the game is. So in life, it really helps to define what winning is. I had this really great roommate when I lived in Bali. His name's Nick Wood. And we would always, whenever we would go out together, oftentimes we would leave the house at the same time to go to an event or a party or yoga, something. And we would say, okay, what does it mean to win this yoga class? Well, that's a weird way to put it, but it's like, what is your intention? But, what would a win be in this situation? What is it? If you're just going to a Halloween party, what does it mean to win that party? Well, it means you show up how you want, or you just want to have one really good conversation with one new person, or you want to really embody, like you're going as a character. Maybe you really want to see what it's like to embody that character. So deciding what a win is in different areas is part of gamification. So you know how to win your own game.
That is so cool. And you also brought in the word experimentation. So it's almost like it gives you permission to experiment and be different ways and show up in different ways and be who you want to be. But what I'm also hearing you say is like, it's important to know what that win is, because your win might be different from my win. So to define that and then to say, okay, how can I play, rather than, even if you play very, like you said, very seriously, like it's still a game.
Yeah. And where most people are operating from is their win is something they've picked up from somebody else along the way. A script, it's running in the background. I call them invisible scripts. Whether it's the sort of college career trajectory, or you're not allowed to talk about sex at the dinner table, or you're supposed to talk about sex at the dinner table, like whatever the script that you're running is, that you probably never sort of looked at until you decided to experiment with something different. And that's a big part of adventure is simply, it may make you uncomfortable simply because it's new, but it's like doing something new just for the sake of potentially creating new pathways in the brain. Going to a new country, when you land, when you get off the plane, right, and the language is different and the money is different, and they drive on the other side of the road, and the color of the grocery store is the color of the post office, and they're switched. So you think you're going to the post office instead you're going to the grocery store, whatever it is. It just blows your mind open, and all of a sudden you create new pathways. So that active seeking of newness, that active seeking of discomfort as a form of experimentation can really, going back to these invisible scripts, it can illuminate, you might not even know you have a script running, but all of a sudden when you see it, then you get to decide.
That is so true. I speak about that a lot, but I would love to hear your perspective on like how does one even become aware of this invisible script?
Yeah, it's there's probably so many, even in my life, that are running that I have no idea are running. I just thought there's this, you might have heard me talking about this, but it just blew my mind thinking about how our thinking is shaped by our mathematics, and how our whole world is structured with a 1 through 10 system and counting in a certain way. And yet our computers, right, are running a binary system, which is a totally different, like if we were to think in binary, that would be totally different than thinking in the base 10 that we do. And perhaps the universe operates more in a sort of like a Fibonacci, a spiral base, like an ever increasing base set of numbers. And seeing that your thinking, your whole perspective of life could be constrained by mathematics, or could be constrained by language, or could be constrained by, right, everybody knows their family and their school had some influence on them, but these more subtle things that you may never think about, and how that's sort of put your thinking in one direction or another.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is so true. Like, we don't know what we don't know. We just live by those things. And exactly what you said. I remember that conversation very clearly, the one about the mathematics of how the universe functions versus how we have boxed ourselves in. And so how can you, I love what you're saying. So how does one break out of these invisible scripts? Because and if you can tie it back to wisdom, because that's a core pillar of how I work with my clients too. And so it sounds like you're very, we're pretty much on parallel paths. How do we connect with spirituality and break some of these old patterns, these invisible scripts?
Well, actually, where I want to go is maybe from a biologist's perspective, because as biological entities, we're seeking the energetic, efficient sort of way of operating. And so rewiring your brain, doing something new, is actually hard work, because it's just like building muscle, but you're building a new brain, you're building a new way of thinking. So it's not just like think about something else. There's a physical, biological component as well. Neurons that wire together in the rewiring process. And so repeatedly changing your attention and your focus is hard work. And what it feels like is uncomfortable. Being a beginner, we've all had that experience of, we show up somewhere and we don't know anybody, and we're like doing a new thing because we really wanted to, but we still feel awkward because it's our first time. Or recently I started learning to play the piano, and my fingers don't move right yet. It's like, stupid fingers can't even do what I want them to do. And it feels cumbersome, and it's frustrating. And that's what living outside your comfort zone feels like. So what you have to do is you have to associate that to a good thing. Like, I want this. I want to feel awkward and uncomfortable and like a noob. And most people don't really like that feeling, because biology wants us to be in a low energy state. One of my early cycling mentors, we were riding up this ridiculously steep mountain in Spain. It was like the cars slide backwards down it in the rain, like, it's ridiculously steep. And we were going, and I was riding so hard, and I could only barely see the road in front of me. Like, with the periphery, my vision had just closed in, and it was just like, just breathing hard and trying to pedal the bike. And he was like, good. Feel what this feels like. Feel how uncomfortable this is to push your limit. This is exactly where you want to be. You want to get used to this. You want to love being in this uncomfortable place, because this is how you're going to win a race like this, because you're going to be uncomfortable and you're going to like it, and somebody else is going to be uncomfortable and they're not going to like it, and they're going to back off, and then you'll win. And so I've always worked from trying to like the discomfort, to associate it positively with the outcomes I want. Whereas most people sort of get to that place and they're like, ugh, doesn't feel good, and then they back off. And that keeps them in the same place.
Wow. I love the connection with biology, which is so true. We humans do not like feeling uncomfortable. We just don't. And what you're saying is so radical. It's like saying it's okay, be in the discomfort, like just stay with it, because that's what's going to help you get to your goals. And I'm sure everybody can relate to that, right? Like, every time we've had a win in our life, it's come from moving through that discomfort, whatever that discomfort is. So that will be resonant for so many people listening. And it's so I love how you connected. I love these stories. Those are great stories. So tell us more. I know you were also, is there more you want to add to that? Or?
Well, I was just going to add that when, all these professional adventurers and explorers, they're often putting themselves right at the limit of discomfort and what's possible for their bodies, for their psyche, right? You've got broken ribs and you're 57 days into crossing the Antarctic trying to set the speed record, or you simply you're in a new place and you have to ask for directions, right? And you're placing yourself in a lot of uncomfortable situations. And that's one of the hallmarks of adventurers, is that because they've gone through so many different uncomfortable things, they have this tremendous confidence. And the confidence is basically like, I'm going to be able to show up and do a good job, even if I don't know what I'm doing, because I can learn a new thing. I can figure it out. My body's going to hold up. I'm going to be able to make friends. I'm going to have the right ideas. There's resourcefulness. And so they build up this reserve, this sort of non-specific nature of confidence, which is closely tied to abundance. This is really interesting. If you define abundance as the ability to do what you want when you want to do it, or do what you need when you need to do it, that's really similar to what adventurers, the adventurous type of confidence, because you know you're going to be able to bring your full resourcefulness to bear. So confidence and abundance are so closely tied, and you can train it. You can get better at it. And here's why that's so cool for everybody, is because it's you're not stuck with a certain amount of abundance or confidence. These are trainable skills that you can break down and work on a little bit at a time.
Wow, my mind's blown. Like I want to almost like succinctly put everything in a box for the listeners. Like what you're saying is so vital for success. You're saying make your life an adventure and win the game of life, like win it, like define your win and go for it. Be in the discomfort, because by being in the discomfort, you will achieve success. Like there's no other way other than achieving the success. And just it's just incredible. Just did I get all of that? Like whatever you said.
That's well put. Yeah.
I'm learning. Good summary. Because it is so true. Like the adventure, especially the piece about adventures, really stood out to me. I know also that before when we started recording, you were talking about an experiment that your mastermind is doing.
Yeah, and I love, we talked about being a self-experimentalist, and sometimes you get this idea that just sticks with you, and this was one of those ideas. And it's kind of around, people have heard of law of attraction, or they've heard about manifesting money or a car or these things. And so there's this fantastic work by she's essentially a journalist, science journalist, Lynn McTaggart. And her book, it's The Power of Eight, I believe. It focuses on healing and how these groups of 8 people would all send the intention for one receiver, and that sort of sat in the middle of a circle, to be healed of whatever, back pain or cancer or whatever it was. And they've, brought in scientists to do statistically significant studies on these groups, and it's phenomenally effective. And I was like, so we know, right, the intent and the sort of the conscious field that the group creates has proven these health outcomes. So my idea was like, well, why can't we do this for something besides health? Why can't we do this for entrepreneurs? Because they're essentially a healthy person, or a sick person wants to inhabit a different future reality, right? They want to be a well person, and that's like one trajectory of their life. And when they become healthy, right, their life is like an alternate reality. They're going from the reality where they're sick to this other reality, jumping into a different timeline, essentially. And so I wanted to do the same thing for entrepreneurs. And I just happen to have this wonderful test group of a small mastermind that I run. And so we did the same thing. Instead of healing, it was like what they wanted to create, like what was going to make the difference for their business. And the key here is for people to be able to effectively send their intent to benefit you. You have to have a clear thing for them to imagine. You have to be able to verbalize, okay, let's say the big difference is for you to go on national TV for the first time. Well, are we going to imagine the point where you're on TV? Are we going to imagine the point where your business is growing because you've been on TV? Or are we going to imagine the point where you first get invited to being on TV? So we go to a specific moment, a specific event, and then we really thoroughly describe what that means to the person who's inhabiting that, what it feels like to, you've just walked off the Today Show, like what is that feeling you're with, so that we can accurately send that intent. And what we found is that it comes true every time. We've done this once a month, every month, all year, and success rate is like people are going on TV. People are doing sold out launches for the first time they've ever launched something, or they're getting invited to speak on. In this case, it was going to be a real conference, but it was a virtual conference, but a large conference and a festival. So all these things are coming true. But the cool thing that we're noticing is the rebound effect. And this seems to be the case for the healing as well, but the sender of the intention is actually getting potentially even more benefit than the receiver.
Wow.
So in the healing instance, people were healing faster when they wished for someone else to heal faster. And in the business group, we're seeing, let's call it more good luck or more positive synchronicities or just more things going their way when they're wanting someone else's business to work for them. And so if we go back to one of the fundamental principles of the universe, you get out what you put in. This is supercharging people's giving. And so we're really taking advantage of the rebound effect. So everybody benefits. It's actually better to be a giver than a receiver.
That is phenomenal, right? We can never, like the laws of the universe never lie. Like this is exactly it. And I'm curious, like have you seen or have you done any experiments where, obviously this is a very good group because it's already come together, but what if someone's just on their own?
Yeah. So every year I get together with a group of friends, my college cross-country friends. I ran track and field and cross-country. We go to a different ski lodge every year, somewhere different, just to explore. And I took them through the exercise as well. And our intent was around one of our friends' wife is, she's Afghani and she's stuck in Afghanistan because of immigration issues. So he can't be with his wife. And so our intent was for that process to like speed up and for her to get here as soon as possible.
I'm getting chills.
Yeah, it feels great to say, like, you're like, yes, and we're all on board. This is a worthy thing for us to intend for the future. And what happens, and so she's still there. Like a few months later, it hasn't supposed to be a 2-year process. She's still in Afghanistan. They met when he was stationed there, and so we don't necessarily know of like how effective that was. But what we all noticed was in the moment, we all sort of, and call it brainwaves or call it collective unconscious, we all felt immensely connected. There was a moment when like you could feel the room change and we were all like boom, zoomed into this, we're on the same wavelength. And that's what it feels like. It feels like when we do these sessions, whether it's with the business group or with my friends, it feels like you're jumping into a river. Like everybody jumps into the river together, a river of shared consciousness. And we're all moving down the river in the same direction. And that feels super cool because it's different than normal reality.
That is such a great visual to about jumping in the river of consciousness and having a one single pointed outcome in mind. That's incredible.
And it makes me, gives me the chills, and it makes me cry. Like every time I end this, these sessions, and I'm just like crying and like, oh my God, like how did this happen? It's very powerful to do.
And this is why I think most people love giving, right? Like it makes you feel so good. And when you know that you're giving energetically, it doesn't have to be material, but like giving for a particular cause, it feels good. It feels good to be doing that for someone. That's amazing. So what you're saying is get your friends together, focus on one intention, and just do it. Try it out.
Yeah. Next time you have, you can do it with 4 people. You could do it with 15 people. 8 seems to be like a good number, but yeah, just play around with it. And it only takes 10 minutes, and it's really fun.
It is, yeah. And to me, what the biggest takeaway I'm taking from you, Derek, is that play, experiment, have a sense of adventure, just have fun, and enjoy the process, even if it's uncomfortable. Like I love that visual of you being on this mountain, trying not to slip down, and your guide or your mentor saying, "No, stay with it. This is what be with this." Or what did he say? Like just enjoy this experience, or I don't know. Like
it's yeah. The words as I remember them are, like be at home in this state. When you're at home in this discomfort and nobody else is, like you've already won the race. And to add to what you're saying about play is, you and I both have kids, and some of the best moments of playing with kids is when they say like, okay, now you're a turtle, or now you're a this, and they're like, okay, this isn't actually the couch, this is our spaceship. And it's like, you could be like, no, it's a couch, which is wah, wah. Or you'd be like, this is a spaceship, yes, and like let's get our helmets on, like. And it's this principle that you hear about in improv comedy, the principle of yes anding. It's like you don't block a flow of play, you only add to it. So you say, yes, this is a spaceship, or yes, I'm a fireman, and we've got to rescue that cat from that tree, and it just continues to go. And so you're allowing the flow of play to continue and develop versus like cramping down on it.
Nice, like living life with no resistance, right? Like that's what you're saying, like just yes anding everything. That's beautiful. Beautiful.
Which, to be fair, is when you're like really tired, is also kind of hard to do sometimes.
With kids, yeah, for sure.
Like, I'll just be a log. I'm just gonna lie here. Okay, I'm a log in your scene.
And my kids are like, no, wake up. Like, no, play with me. No. Yeah, I know. But I love that, because so much of life, at least in the amount, whatever I can remember of my life, it's felt so serious. Like I have to like grind it out. I mean, only in the last few years I can safely say I'm like, I don't want to do that anymore. But until then, it was always like, hey, push through and hard work, and I'm so done with that. This is more enjoyable, right? Anyways, we're here. Why not make fun? Why not have fun with it?
Yeah, and it's still just as like the work is still just as hard. Like it's, whether it's riding your bike up a mountain or preparing to, crush your first TV appearance or whatever it is, right? One of my friends, she's a thought leader. She went from just a normal employee to, she's now CEO of 6 companies and on many boards, and is one of the highest paid medical thought leaders. And she was like, I practiced my TED Talk 46 times. And I was like, damn, that's a lot. 46 rehearsals. I was like, I would probably do 5, 6 rehearsals. I don't know what I would really do, but 46 times rehearsal. And she hired a whole team of like TV producers to write and script it, and she really wanted to knock it out of the park. That's hard work. That is really hard. It's impressive to see what real professionals do. Like the difference between 90% and 100% best in the world is pretty big, because of their, she's practicing so much more than I would, or she's really getting the best advice. And it's just this, real professionalism, real best in the world is hard work, but you almost don't even notice it because you're playing.
And that's the difference. That's the key, right? Like it's not about, it doesn't mean that you won't put in the effort or won't put in the work but you'll do it because you're enjoying it and you love it. And from what you're describing of your friend, right? She loves what she does and she wants to share that with the world. And so she will do anything and everything to make that come out really beautifully. But it also means you play, you have fun with it. And my takeaway is like, anytime now I'm going to be in discomfort, I'm going to imagine you on that mountain on your bicycle saying, okay, I'm just going to be with the discomfort. I'm just going to enjoy this discomfort, like be at home with the discomfort. Because that's it. When you can be home with the discomfort, then it just feels, okay, I can just cross this hurdle. This is not going to be permanent. It actually reminded me just a few days ago, it was snowing, and we went on a full moon hike. It was organized by this local nonprofit organization. And so we went on this full moon hike, and it was so cold. It was bitter cold, but it was extraordinary, exquisite. It was quiet. It was in nature. We could hear the owls hooting. My hands and feet were frozen, and I was fully equipped. And unconsciously, I did what you were doing, which was being with the discomfort, just breathing into it and saying, you know what is more important to me? Can I enjoy this with my family, which we never do, with 2 kids, like getting out at that in the evening hours, like it was a crazy making. Like in the car, trying our best not to argue, saying, what the heck were we thinking doing this? Who in the right mind thought that this was a good idea? But it was such an enjoyable experience, despite all the hardships getting there. It was worth it. Being with that discomfort, being at home with the discomfort. I love that. It's such a great takeaway.
Man, that's reminding me of there was actually, because the moon cycles and you never know when you're going to get a full moon lining up with something. About 10 years ago, full moon on New Year's Eve, and I was backcountry in Colorado snowshoeing at midnight, and it was just like, and the air is so cold and dry, and it's like not just the water, the snow that's frozen, but it's like, in some sense, like time is frozen, and it makes you live in the present moment. You're like, this is what it feels like right now to be here right now, and it, you can't even think about anything else, it's a very, very cool experience.
Yeah, and it's really about like just being, right? Like that's what it does. It helps you be in the present moment. When you are with the discomfort, like you're even the discomfort, there's joy in the discomfort. Because there is so much discomfort in life, like everywhere you go, no matter what you do, there's discomfort. And if you can find joy in that, that's amazing.
Yeah, I was doing a corporate training actually on creativity, I believe, and somebody was asking about adventure, like, well, what's the opposite of adventure? And I was like, it's comfort. It's complacency. It's like just falling back into plopping down on the couch and turning on the TV, or like whatever your form of plopping down and disconnecting is. And that's the easy road. That's the, like, you could do that for years and wake up and be like, ooh, I haven't done an adventure in a decade. And it's not because you didn't want to, it's just because like that's the easy way. I was like, it's all these tiny little decisions of like, I'm just going to relax, I'm going to rest, I'm going to take my foot off the gas, or I'm going to seek being fully alive.
Yeah, seek being fully alive. Yeah. So as you know, like I feel like we can keep talking for hours. It's so interesting, so interesting. But I'm curious before we wrap up, if you can share a few words of how can people use adventure and gaming and using that as a metaphor for living a vibrant life.
Where do I want to direct people? So a lot of times people think of adventure as like you have to go on an expedition. Like, well, I'm not really ready to climb Mount Everest, so I'm not really an adventurer. And the way that I apply this, right, how you do anything is how you do everything. How would an adventurer think about going for a walk in their neighborhood, or how would an adventurer think about cooking dinner or getting dressed, the mundane things that are part of your routine? And maybe you like put on 2 different color socks, or maybe you like go counterclockwise on your neighborhood walk, or maybe you try to cook without using a recipe, or these little micro things that cause you to be a beginner again, just intentionally placing yourself in situations where you're not a master. And and be aware, like pick something that's easy enough that you're not going to be dejected. You're not going to be like, oh, this is too hard. Because we've seen our kids, right, when they're trying to do something and they just give up and throw the thing across the room because they're just like, it's too hard. I'm never going to get this. We don't want to feel like that, but we do want to feel immersed and engaged in what you're doing. And a lot of times this is where creative inspiration comes through as well. So you're like, okay, I'm going to cook this dish with no recipe. All of a sudden you're like, I'm going to put a dash of this and a pinch of that, and you're blending and you're tasting, and you create a new dish that's never been done before, and that becomes the family recipe that gets passed for generations. Like that's how it all starts. So I would say think about it like a micro adventures. Just in your normal daily life, how can you bring an adventure mindset?
It's so beautiful. I love how you're inviting people to just start with something, like start every day. It doesn't have to be this big thing, but starting every day. You don't have to go and climb up that mountain on a bicycle on a rainy day, right? But like starting with small things.
And there's one more framework that that just came to me that's I found to be really helpful. And this is like an overarching quest. So again, when you think about like a video game character, they have to like go find a gem, or they have to go defeat a dragon or something. But there's like a lot of stages along the way. So there may be an overarching quest that you're on. And for me, for a while, that was to visit every state in the US. And now I'm on a quest to live 3 months or more on every continent. So I'm four continents in, have 2 more to go, Africa and South America. I haven't done that yet. But these are more these long-term quests that, like it takes planning, it takes aligning your life with the quest. And it's not something that can be completed in a single day or even a month sometimes. And so it creates almost a quest is something worthwhile, but I would say it almost creates like a sacredness. It's like quests and pilgrimages are very similar, and that there's something sort of bigger than you, or bigger than the single moment you're in, to be operating from. So if you again think like a video game character and apply quests to your life, you could have multiple quests running simultaneously. That's another great sort of framework for bringing adventure into your life.
I love that. And also I love it because when you have a larger quest that you can bring your adventure energy to, by doing these small little things every day, like cooking a dish without a recipe, or like taking a walk in ways that you've never, like in a neighborhood that you've not done before, like putting yourself intentionally out of your comfort zone. It almost like creates that that belief that you can do anything, like doesn't keep you stuck, and also puts you back on that path of like, I can get to where I want to get. And it's okay to be in just uncomfortable situations.
Yeah.
I love that. Don't be a master. Like, just show to be a beginner again. I love that. That's such a great phrase to live by.
Which ironically will probably let you get more mastery than somebody else.
100% true. 100%, right? Like, because, yeah, you're so right. Wow, this was just so amazing. What an amazing conversation. I'm so grateful for your time and for your wisdom and what all the things you shared. So many beautiful takeaways. I've learned so much from you today.
That's great. Great to hear. Yeah.
We've interacted, but I've never interacted with you in this capacity, in this depth. And so it's really amazing to hear this. Thank you. So where can people find you? I'll put everything in the show notes, but please share, like, how can people find you?
Sure. At Derek Loudermilk on social media and derekloudermilk.com. My show is the Derek Loudermilk Show. So keep it all on point, on brand there.
It's great. Did you choose your art for your show? I was just curious.
Yeah, it was a fun process. I was posting. We rebranded the podcast from the Art of Adventure to the Derek Loudermilk Show, so it needed new cover art, and I was sharing the process along the way, and our coach was like, "Never ask people's advice," and I was like, "Whatever." It was really fun. I'm glad I did.
Because that's when it caught my attention. You really look like a Bollywood star with your outfit and like with the colors, and like it really was like, wow, you look like a Bollywood hero.
I'm gonna have to watch some Bollywood films, I think. See what that's all about. Maybe that's my next career move.
Your next adventure, going and living in India.
Yeah.
As a Bollywood star.
That would be wild. Like I mean, that would be a big self-experiment. That would be to say, could I really become a Bollywood star and just fake it till you make it? Who knows?
Who knows, right? Who knows? Experiment, adventure.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been fun.
So lovely. It was so great. Thank you so much, Derek.
Yeah, my pleasure.